Like the stories in several of Tarantino's films, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a fictional narrative set against a largely historical backdrop. The film intertwines real people into the story and uses the Charles Manson murders as a setting. Today, we'll discuss everything the movie got right, as well as what they changed for the sake of entertainment. We'll be breaking down the movie into 3 sections: the bullshit, the gray area, and the accurate. First, let's talk about the parts of the movie that are either made up or historically inaccurate. This section is the bullshit. First, let's talk about one of the movie's final scenes. After some Manson family members break into Rick Dalton's house, Cliff Booth orders his dog Brandy to attack. Together they kill Tex and injure Sadie, though Booth is stabbed in the thigh and passes out after killing Katie. Sadie stumbles outside, alarming Dalton, who retrieves a flamethrower and incinerates her. After Booth is taken away in an ambulance to receive treatment, Sebring and Tate invite Dalton over for a drink, which he accepts. Now this does make for a nice Hollywood ending, but it could not be further from the truth. The real events of August 8th, 1969 on Cielo Drive involve one of the most shocking and indelible crimes of the 20th century. In real life, Charles Manson ordered his followers Charles Tex Watson, Susan Sadie Atkins, Patricia Katie Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian to go to the house at 10,050 Cielo Drive and kill everyone they found there. The home had previously belonged to Terry Melcher, a record producer who had refused to sign Manson to a recording contract. Melcher no longer lived there, and the home was then being rented to Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant. When the Manson family members came to the door, Polanski was away working in Europe. However, Tate was home along with one of Polanski's friends, Wojciech Frykowski, his girlfriend Abigail Folger, and Jay Sebring, a celebrity hairstylist who was a friend and former boyfriend of Tate's. After they shot and stabbed all 5 to death, Atkins scrawled the word pig on the front door in Tate's blood. The cult members also encountered Stephen Parent, a friend of the property's caretaker, and killed him. Is Rick Dalton a real person? No. Aging actor Rick Dalton is a fictional character. Tarantino didn't base Dalton on any one character, but the director has cited inspiration from 60s era actors like Ty Hardin, whose career has shades of Dalton. Hardin went from starring in a TV show called Bronco to late career spaghetti westerns.
It's official, old buddy. Well, has been.
Like Dalton, his longtime stunt double Cliff Booth is also a fictional character. However, there is a clearer real-life parallel to stuntman Cliff Booth. Hal Needham, Burt Reynolds' best buddy and stunt double. Like Booth, Needham served in the army before pivoting to stunt work and met his professional partner on a black and white TV western, Reynolds' Riverboat. Needham and Reynolds even lived together for 5 years. Needham went on to write and direct Smokey and the Bandit and direct Cannonball Run. In 2012, 1 year before Needham passed away, Quentin Tarantino presented him with an honorary Academy Award at the Governor's Awards. Now, most would argue that Bruce Lee's portrayal was not accurate. His daughter, Shannon Lee, even had this to say.
He could have handled it in a way that was respectful of my father, as well as, served his story purposes.
To which Tarantino responded,
I can understand his daughter having a problem with it. It's her father, all right? I get that. But anybody else, go suck it.
Tarantino has stated he's not a fan of Lee after he was accused of tagging on set. Regardless, he stated that the direct purpose of the Bruce Lee scene was to make a case for Cliff's own killer capabilities. However, you could still make the case that the film makes a mockery of Bruce Lee, who is depicted as more of an SNL caricature than a disciplined artist. We should also note Lee never trash-talked Muhammad Ali in real life. We've now reached the gray area. These scenes are either unconfirmed or contain partial truths. Did one of the Manson girls really back out of the murders at the last minute? Not exactly, but there is a grain of truth to it. In the film, Tex and 3 female members of the Manson family drive up to the residence of Tate and Polanski. They park the car at the bottom of the street and climb the steep road until Linda says she forgot her knife in the car and has to get it. She walks back to the car and drives off, leaving the 3 to carry out the crime by themselves. In reality, no one bailed last minute. but she did not take part in the actual murders. She instead acted as a lookout and even testified to attempting to stop the murders. She then drove the killers back to SPAHN Ranch. We only get a brief glimpse of Charles Manson in the film. He is shown wandering up into the Tate and Polanski home unannounced in an apparent scope out ahead of the murders. The visit makes for an incredibly unsettling scene in which Manson asks about Terry Melcher and Jay Sebring tells him the owner has since left. This scene actually happened in real life, except it was Tate and Polanski's friend, SHARON, a photographer, who spoke with him and advised him to approach the landlord for the music producer's whereabouts. Hatami was photographing Tate ahead of a TV show while she packed for a trip to Rome. Did Cliff Booth actually murder his wife? The Once Upon a Time in Hollywood novel, written by Quentin Tarantino himself, confirms Cliff Booth did in fact kill his wife. Now, you may be asking yourself, why are we including this in the gray area if Cliff Booth is a fictional character? Let us explain. In a flashback that entirely harshed this movie's mellow, we see the lead up to the rumors that Cliff murdered his wife. On a choppy fishing boat, he sits in a wetsuit and goggles and calmly aims a harpoon at his shrill, nagging spouse. The whispers and ambiguity surrounding the circumstances of Mrs. Booth's death echoes the eternal Hollywood mystery of successful actress Natalie Wood's passing off a boat near Catalina Island in 1981. An LA County sheriff named her husband, Robert Wagner, a person of interest 37 years later in 2018. Alcohol, motion sickness pills, and painkillers were found in her system, but the events surrounding her death were eventually ruled inconclusive, leaving conspiracy theorists to speculate. These final scenes stayed faithful to reality. These are all the parts the movie got right. This section is the accurate. Let's talk about what the movie got right on the night of the murders. In the film, Tex, Sadie, and Katie are extremely drugged up when they arrive at the Tate-Polanski cul-de-sac. In fact, it's something of a source of dark comedy. But it's true that they were extremely high when they committed the murders. Moreover, they were pretty much high the entire time they were living at the ranch, with Manson giving them LSD daily in order to command influence. Despite some criticism about Margot Robbie's lack of screen time, her portrayal of Sharon Tate has earned praise for its depth and accuracy from Tate's own sister, who's been outspoken about her distaste with past depictions. Tate really did train with Bruce Lee and sustain relationships with Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojciech Frykowski. Tate also really did have lunch on the day before she was killed with her friend Joanna Pettit, who retired from acting in the 90s. Robbie also went to great lengths to accurately portray Tate. Robbie shared that she had gotten permission from Tate's family to wear the actress's jewelry, and doing so made her feel even more connected to her. Robbie also sat down with Tate's loved ones to get a feel for who she really was as a person. In the film, Manson's right-hand man, Tex, tells Cliff Booth this:
I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business.
While actor Austin Butler's delivery of the line is clumsy and even comical, these were the exact words uttered by the real-life Watson before he and his cronies brutally killed Sharon Tate and her crew. In real life, though, he said it to Wojciech Frykowski, a friend of Polanski's and the boyfriend of Abigail Folger. As outlandish as it seems in the film, SPAHN Movie Ranch was an actual place. Charles Manson and his followers really did live there with the blessing of its blind, aging owner, George Spahn, in exchange for free labor and sexual favors. George's favorite Manson family member, Squeaky Fromm, was a real person who shared a close bond with her landlord. Though she was never charged in connection to the Tate murders, she later achieved another kind of infamy when she attempted to shoot President Gerald Ford in 1975. Also, the Manson family members did in fact run a horse riding business for tourists out of the location in order to make some money on the side. The whole site burned down in 1970, and George himself died 4 years later in 1974. We should also note it was Spawn, not Manson, who gave the girls their nicknames. Was Sharon Tate always barefoot like the film depicted? A quick Google search will reveal plenty of discussion around Tarantino's apparent obsession with putting female feet in his films. But it turns out the appearance of Tate's was accurate. In the film, we see Sharon Tate go watch one of her own movies, The Wrecking Crew, in a cinema where she removes her white go-go boots and pops her slightly dirty feet up on the chair in front. It might not be comfortable viewing for any germaphobe, but it turns out Tate did spend a lot of her time barefoot. It was the swinging 60s after all. In fact, according to the Los Angeles Times, Tate used to trick her way into fancy restaurants by looping string around her feet and ankles to give the illusion that she was wearing shoes. Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring had an interesting relationship. Although Tate is married to Polanski in the film, he's a far less prevalent on-screen presence than Sebring, Tate's former love interest. In one scene from the movie, actor Steve McQueen explains to a fellow partygoer that Sebring is madly in love with Tate and had plans to marry her. Not wanting to lose her after her marriage to Polanski, he befriended the pair and became inseparable from them. This is a fairly accurate representation of the trio's relationship and explains why Sebring was with Tate the night she died. Tragically, Sebring was still wearing a ring Tate had given him while they were dating when he was murdered. Were Tate's final hours depicted accurately? Yes, they surprisingly were. Tate and her friends really did spend their last moments dining at a Mexican restaurant called El Coyote, and it's still open to this day. A Hollywood institution, El Coyote regularly pays tribute to Tate on social media and is a popular stop on any Manson-themed tours. Was the Playboy Mansion scene based in reality? During a party at the Playboy Mansion, Tate is shown dancing with Sebring, Cass Elliot, and Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas as Steve McQueen looks on. While the star-studded moment appears to be merely an evocation of Hollywood, it's certainly conceivable the five would have attended the same party together. Tate was friends with Elliot and Phillips, as was McQueen, who was also a client of Sebring's. In fact, McQueen's widow gave an interview to the National Post in 2017, claiming that McQueen was invited to dinner with Tate the night of the murders. He likely would have been in the house at Cielo Drive had he not, quote, ran off with a chickie he'd met that night instead. Were the Manson woman depicted accurately? A significant portion of the film is centered on Cliff's burgeoning relationship with fictional Manson follower Pussycat. Cliff first spots Pussycat as she roams Los Angeles with other family members, dumpster diving and singing Always Is Always Forever, which is actually one of Charles Manson's original songs. They properly meet when Pussycat asks Cliff for a lift back to SPAHN Ranch, offering him sexual favors in exchange for his trouble. While she is a fictional character, this was a tactic employed by the real-life Manson woman who relied on hitchhiking as a means for transport. They would also dumpster dive for food regularly to provide for the men at the ranch. Two of the women were even once picked up by Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson. With all that said, let's do a quick breakdown of just how accurate the movie was. We score every movie in 3 categories, each on a scale of 1 to 10, then take the average of the 3. First up, plot accuracy. We're giving a 2 out of 10 here. While the movie managed to get a lot historically accurate, Tarantino did change the biggest plot detail of all. At the end of the day though, we do understand movies need to have a happy ending. For character portrayal, we are giving a 7 out of 10. While the 2 main characters are completely fictional, mostly all of the supporting cast were depicted accurately. We understand the purpose of Dalton and Booth was to tie the movie together. And lastly, for embellishment and exaggeration, we are giving a 5 out of 10. Remember, the higher the number here, the less it's embellished. While the final scene is greatly exaggerated, the rest of the movie was a true depiction of the times. So our final accuracy score is a 4.7 out of 10. While the movie takes some creative liberties, Tarantino did manage to get the film relatively historically accurate. And it makes a lot of sense that Tarantino decided to save Tate and her friends in his telling of the story. A depiction of the brutal murders would have represented a radical tonal shift for the funny and rather lighthearted film. But what do you think? Did you enjoy his telling of 1969? Let us know in the comments, as well as what other true movies you want to see us analyze next. Thanks for watching.